Hey guys, today I want to talk a little bit about the second starter deck, which is the Jinx and Zed starter deck. So let's take a peek at the cards that are in this deck, and then we will play a game, and then I'm going to explain what my recommended upgrade paths are for once you actually, if you like this playstyle, I will explain the upgrade paths that I personally like, and then I will also explain some of the more competitive decks that are running something like these playstyles. So this deck runs a decent amount of low-cost cards combined with the goal of either triggering Zed or Jinx. Zed will create a shadow that also attacks, and this shadow will be ephemeral, so it dies, but it's also just free stats that you summon every single turn. He has quick attack, which means that as long as he's not blocked by something with more than 3, he's very difficult to deal with. There are cards like Twin Disciplines that will give an ally +3/+0, making Zed very, very strong and hard to kill because he will have 6 damage and have quick attack. But when Zed is upgraded, then he creates a copy with his stats and keywords. So Twin Disciplines will make it to where you have 2 very big creatures. Now, the thing is, the Living Shadow already has his stats, so Twin Disciplines works either way, but this will also keep his keywords, so both him and his... If you get his upgrade, both him and his shadow will have quick attack. You can also do things like having a... Let me move up a little bit. You can have a Herald of Spring, which can give both of them lifesteal, so you can gain all of your life back. Or you can do things that give them Double Strike, or Elusive, or Barrier, etc., etc., etc. Allowing Zed decks to have a lot of potential free stats by just getting him leveled up. Jinx, on the other hand... Her whole goal is emptying your hand. If your hand is empty, she levels up. If she's leveled up and you empty your hand, then you get a free rocket. And you also draw 2 cards per turn whenever your hand is whenever you have an upgraded Jinx. So you're going to be drawing 2 cards, and then you are also going to be casting everything that you can. So your goal with Jinx, have really low cast cards, so you can just cast a whole bunch of really low cast stuff. Let's get into the starter deck. If you're going to be playing the starter deck just as itself, the goal of it is to try to replace as many cards as you can to try to get your Zed early, and then your Jinx a little bit later, because the current deck as it stands does not synergize very well with Jinx's effect on its own, so you want to try to replace everything that's very high cost to try to get Zed early. This is actually a pretty good ramp, so I'm going to just leave this. I have a turn 1, 2, 3 with a possibility of something else, so I really like this where it stands. We're going to keep this hand. We're going to play this first, granting one thing in our hand, extra stats. We want to probably grant this extra stats because it already has some of the best stats on its own. So this will also give us a pretty strong turn 2 if we want it, which we'll probably just play that out on turn 2. He has a Poro out. I'm going to just try to attack just to see if he decides to block it. Mine is something that's already used its effect, so if he blocks, it's actually more valuable for me. And then on turn 2, I will likely try to get some spell mana. But it really depends. It is his attack turn, so if he plays something, I'll play my blocker. So he just played something, I'm going to play my blocker. This gives me a really good position, because if he attacks, I've got a lot of extra stats that I can survive, and it's going to be a lot more efficient for me. He did give it some extra damage, though, so I still got a 2-for-1 trade, which is very efficient for me card-wise. And so it's going to head over back to my turn. I'm probably just going to get a Snapper out and go with the defensive stats. Right here, we've got a Snapper, and we're going to go with defensive stats. We're going to try to play the blocker out because we didn't get a lot of the cards we want. So this combo right here is pretty cool. The Augmented Experimenter makes it where you discard your entire hand, then draw 3, deal 3 damage to an enemy unit. So if you play Jinx and then play this card, you immediately level up Jinx, then draw 3 cards and do 3 damage. So it's kind of neat, and you start just drawing 2 cards per turn. So if you're just using this not for the Super Mega Death Rocket, but more for the drawing 2 cards per turn, for more of a control Jinx playstyle, then this is a really cool card to throw in there. But as far as anything here, we're not going to be attacking. We're simply just going to pass over the turn. We just want to keep this guy alive as long as possible. We do also have our Zed available in case we want to attack with Zed, having that quick strike. So we'll likely just play... We might play both of these just so we have the extra blockers. And we can just chump block Draven if needed. So we're going to play both of these, fill up our extras, and try to just clean up his board a little bit before we start playing the bigger stuff. So he has small things. He's probably not going to attack with everything here. Oh, he will. Okay. It is a bot, so he's... I mean, we are actually going to flip these. So I just take a little bit less damage. Draven can do some damage. That's okay. He just needs to strike twice with spinning axes, so it's going to happen no matter what. And so there's nothing I can really do as far as stopping him from leveling up. So it's my turn once again, and we will want to probably go for the Jinx and then discard all of our cards in hand.
Jinx stands for Jinx.
We do not want to attack, but we do have Quick Strike, so there's very few downsides to attacking with Jinx. Outside of if he does something that deals damage. But he could have done that whether or not I played Jinx. So I have no reason to actually do the Experimenter this turn unless I'm just trying to kill Draven, which is probably what I'm going to do. It's unfortunate because I do like having Zed in this, but we're going to skip the block. And on our turn, we will be taking out the Draven. Hopefully we get a Jinx or something that we can still do in the next 3 cards. You can see as far as the champions go, we haven't had any champions do anything really cool yet, so it's a little unfortunate that I'm trying to show the deck and we haven't had anything exciting happen. But you can see there's a lot of counter synergy to this. There's a lot of big cards making Jinx a little difficult to get value off of, and there's not a lot of things that target Zed to buff him up. So essentially it's just a deck that has some extra cards in it, which is okay. So, and again, there's cards like this. When summoned, you draw a card. Well, you don't really want to be drawing that many cards when you have a Jinx. So, in this case, we're going to just try to buff up everything. So, we're going to buff up the Assassin, because this is an elusive Assassin. Sure, I'll just let him do that. That's fine. Just stuns one creature. That's actually weird, right? Doesn't this... Oh, when you draw a card, give it +1. Okay. So we will have a few elusives here. This will be pretty good. And if he summons anything, which he isn't summoning anything, we should be okay. So we're going to swing out and start getting some damage off. This is also an interesting card with Jinx, because even if this is the last card in hand and you play it for 0, the Super Mega Death Rocket doesn't do anything, because it costs 2 to cast a Super Mega Death Rocket. So it's a weird card to have in a Jinx deck. I guess it sounds cool on paper. Or it's good to... I mean, you don't even want to use it on the opponent's turn either. Okay, so it's their turn. I can do 11 damage, which is neat. But otherwise, there's no reason for me to do anything here. I'll just end round, I guess. I could just summon that for the extra value. And again, we have another one of... I guess I could have just done damage to him. This is only damage to units, so I think I just swing out again. So unfortunately, this is a very anticlimactic game for this type of deck, but let me share with you guys a few things of what I would recommend updating. If you have played this deck and you do like the playstyle of Zed, unfortunately, focusing too much on Zed is really difficult, because the more control decks you're going to play against are going to be able to answer Zed. So the competitive Zed decks that are being used currently, let me see if I can pull them up really quick, don't actually buff Zed at all. They just use the fact that he's a lot of extra stats with quick attack. So they just play him as an aggro deck. They'll run Lucian, they'll run Zed, and they'll just play a full aggro deck and do their best to summon a bunch of little things with high value, buff up their couple things that they do have, and just don't worry if anything dies. So they just play a full-on aggro deck. However, if you like Jinx, there is an aggro combo deck that I kind of threw together that I would recommend trying out, which is, I will see if I can get a link to that. Oh, I put it right here. I'll put a link to that in the description below, where you use Jinx, and all of the cards in your deck will try to cycle through or cast the majority of them. The most expensive cards in this deck is 1 Experimenter, 2 Decimates, and 1 Darius. And the goal between those is just to finish off the game. The Experimenter can trigger Jinx. Worst case scenario, if you're just having a lot of trouble and you can't get rid of the cards in your hand, it'll trigger the Jinx. And then you can at least start dumping the cards in your hand. You don't need to run it with this card, but I have found it answers some of those awkward situations where your board's kind of in a weird state and you just need to answer something. Darius is pretty similar, and Decimates are pretty similar. You can run the whole deck without any of these, but they are kind of nice finishers when you just need something to end out the game. So the basic idea of this deck is it's a Jinx budget aggro deck with a little bit of combo with it. What I mean by combo is that you are going to be trying to ditch your entire hand, so you will be using cards like a Sump Dredger, which is a very high stat card that makes you discard one card to make it work. So you're losing 2 card advantage to get out a really strong card, but you actually like losing cards when you're running a Jinx deck. You're also running cards like Rummage, which you discard 2 cards and then you draw 2 cards, allowing you to rummage to try to find your Jinx. And if you already have Jinx and you only have 3 cards in hand, you play Rummage, discard 2, trigger Jinx, and then draw 2. So all of these decks work this way, but you also run cards like Jury Rig. What Jury Rig does is it makes to where when you cast, or when this is cast or it's discarded, you summon a creature. So you are going to be summoning creatures, or units in this case. Sorry, I play a lot of Magic the Gathering. You're going to be summoning these units on accident because you're going to be discarding this card while you're doing it. You have Blade's Edge just for low cost damage, Caustic Cast for low cost damage, Affectionate Poro for low cost control, Legion Rearguard for low cost value, the Urchin, which is you discard it and then you can draw a card. Again, this helps you get your Jinx triggered initially, and it's also just extra value. You've got the Eager Apprentice so that you have extra mana to spend on spells because we're running a lot of spells in this deck, and then you also have the Sump Dredger. And so overall, it's just a very synergistic deck that will trigger Jinx very often. It's also very budget. You get the Experimenter for free, you get 2 Jinxes and 1 Darius for free. All you really need is 1 Jinx and a few just extra cards to fill out the rest of this deck. As far as wild cards go, there are not a lot of epics. There's most of its greens with a couple blues, and that's about it. So all in all, you could build this entire deck the first day of playing if you like playing a Jinx style of deck. As far as tiers, I'm not going to be doing tier lists yet until we get into watching a little bit more competitive, but I would put this as probably like a tier 2.5 if I had to place it at all, meaning that it's enough to really compete with things, but it's probably not perfect. But it could easily get you some rank ups, and it can get you an idea of where you want to be without spending a lot of wild cards. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have other tips that you want to add for this starter deck for upgrading it, let me know in the comments down below. If you like these styles of videos, feel free to toss a subscribe, and thank you guys, and always check out any of my other videos.